I'll start it again. Okay, so I'm here with Christina, and I'm going to go through how I solved problem 20 from chapter 7. I don't have the printouts working 100%, but that's not the main issue to me. So the first thing I did, which the book talks about, but you don't necessarily have to do, I just went ahead and made a final static int, a constant for the rows and columns, because I was always getting confused as I was doing this, how that was going to happen. Okay, so I put it outside of the void, the main method, so I can get to it anywhere. And to do that, I had to make it static. Okay, so I created my sales array here, and I went ahead and pre-populated it, so there's a 0 there. So I'm not making, for my sanity when I'm testing it, I didn't make it where I had to enter something for every single person. Okay, so now I can enter as many or as few as I want. It's still going to work. Okay, so then I've got some integers for the salesperson, the product, and the quantity. Okay, so then here's my main loop. I just did 0 to exit, but -1 also works, whatever you want to do on that one, or 99 or whatever makes you happy. But I'm just printing out the message, enter the salesperson number 1 to 4 or 0 to exit, and then I'm taking that input into that salesperson variable. And then as long as it's not equal to 0, I don't know why that's doing funny things. Okay, I'm going ahead and printing out enter the product number, and then they get that as product number, and then enter the quantity sold. Because again, here I'm already determined that I've got a valid. I'm not testing for validity. I'm not testing if it's over 4, but that's okay. That'll throw an error if I don't. Okay, and that I'm doing, this is the line that I think other people I've looked at have a bunch of if statements to get this to work. You don't need to do that. Okay, so if you think about this array, okay, so and I've got, this is salesman 1, salesman 2, salesman 3, salesman 4 by row, product 1, product 2, product 3, product 4, product 5. If I look at this position, the one I have highlighted, that's salesman 2, product 3, okay, if that's what they input, if they enter salesman 2, product 3, if they enter a 10 there, then I don't need a bunch of ifs. I have everything I need. This is at position in the array. It's in the second row, the third column, okay? But because we start at 0, it's in the row number 1, column number 2, okay? So I can just say here that the salesperson, or the sales array at salesperson -1 to account for the 0, product -1 is equal to that plus the new quantity, okay? So that tells me exactly. The other way to do this, if you wanted to, you could add an extra row and an extra column and just ignore the zeros. So if you wanted just to make it that you could enter a 3-3 for salesperson 3, product 3, that's okay. You could waste a row, but I decided not to do that, okay? So that's getting me directly.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, please do.
So all you're telling that is that the sales array, when you put something in, that it's going to go to that particular item in the array.
Yes.
Okay.
So again, if I say salesperson 3, product 4, it has to put it at row 2, column 3. That's to subtract 1.
So essentially what you're doing is you're just, when you type it in, when it asks you for the input, it's going ahead and automatically putting in those values because you're telling it where to put it.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's going to do all of my calculations. It's going to keep doing that. You know, and then I added in this little line in a space just because it was kind of hard. It was hard to read. So it's a little easier to read now. Okay. And then to print out the results, and again, I don't have mine fixed up yet, but I did the % number thing and just basically go through. Although the other thing I had to do, so I got that working and tested it, and it was producing the sales correctly. Okay. Then when you get to the end, you have to do that row total. Okay. So for the row total, there's no good way to do that rather than put a loop when I wanted to do that. So again, on here we've got, this is the main output loop. Okay, this is going to go through each row. So it's going to start just with the header for the salesperson. Then it's going to go into the columns. Okay, so this is what prints out on each row every individual item. Okay. And then after, when I'm here the first time, I'm done with the first row. Okay. So I could put another loop in here to calculate the row totals, but I thought it was just easier to do a function. So I've created this get row total to do here. Okay. So the first time through, it's going to do salesperson 1, product 1 here, and then product 2, product 3, product 4, product 5. Then it's going to send that whatever row we're on, row 0 the first time, and the sales array down to this function. The function down here is just going to set a sum equal to 0, and it's going to go through for each of the columns, and it's going to add up that row. The row's always the same, row 0 the first time, but add up each column and then return that back up to here and print that total. Okay, so that's what prints the total at the end. Okay, and again, mine's ugly right now, but that part was working until I tried to make it pretty. Okay, and then when you've done that, so you print out most of the row total, new line, the row total, all that to the end. And then at the end, you do the same kind of a deal, but with the column totals. Okay, so I have another function here, it looks pretty much the same on the column totals, where I pick which column do you want? Do you want column 0 through column 4? Okay, and then again, I'm going to send the array here. Same thing, but this time it's based on the rows. I'm going to go through, and for each row, I'm fixing the column, getting that total, sending back the sum. Okay, so that's kind of the game plan of what I did. Okay, it's not wrong to do a bunch of if statements. I mean, you could say if salesperson equal 1, then, and if the product number is equal to 1, then do to change that. But I'm lazy. Good programmers are lazy. I started coding it that way, and I'm like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a more efficient way to get to that. And that's kind of the whole point of using arrays, right? Because we're using arrays, I can get exactly what I need. I don't need to do anything.
Well, see, this makes more sense to me doing it that way, because you're directly taking whatever you're inputting and saying it goes to this space.
Yes.
Then you can deal with those spaces.
Yes.
I mean, it gets a little hairy when you're printing, but
it does. Yeah, the print, and I haven't got it fixed yet. The print's ugly. But and when it comes to grading, I don't care so much about the print. I mean, try to make it pretty, but that's not the point. The point is the functionality of being able to get those numbers.
okay.
And the real trick is, and I think everybody that I've seen so far, of course, people that got it wouldn't ask questions, have missed that you can directly get to the individual cell that you want. And that's the whole point of using the array. Okay, it saves us. I mean, I think, I forget somebody, Kimberly Emery, I think, she had like a 300-line program. Because she was going through, she had a switch inside of a switch, and it, I mean, it works, but you're not using the power of the array. And I wouldn't mark it wrong. I mean, I'm not looking to be vindictive here, but this is a learning moment, right? When we have arrays, use the power of the array and get right to it. I feel like a preacher now. I'm going to put out a replay in a minute. But does that make sense?
Well, and see, I get it with the one, like the one row arrays, because you can cycle through those numbers.
Yes.
It's the two that threw me, because it's like, how does it know where it's going and what it's putting it into? That's what I couldn't figure out.
Well, and that's why I did this up here. So I could just keep track of that. You know, what the columns, what the max are. The other thing I could have done but didn't, I could have taken all of this and put it out here as well as a static. Okay, so if you wanted to simplify your function so I didn't have to send this every time, you could have done that, but that's not necessary.
Okay, this makes a lot more sense, because I mean, I typed in the grade book and stuff, like I typed it in and went through that and was trying to figure it out from that. And it's just too much. I mean, it's just overwhelming, and you can't figure out exactly what's going where. And that was the problem I was having.
Right. Well, and I think this is probably, I think there's no probably about it. It's the most complex program we've done as far as understanding or trying to get a strategy for what it is that it's doing, you know, what you need to do with it. So yeah, that's why I was going to do a video. So you've cost me no time at all today, so I'm going to do this anyway. now I've got someone that can ask questions, so it's even better. So it's all good for sure. But yeah, this, and again, you could have lived without this. You should understand this for the midterm, what I'm doing here.
So I was going to ask, is that just setting like the rows? I mean, what is that exactly doing?
Yeah, what it's doing, basically, it's a place for me to keep track of how many rows and how many columns I have. Okay. The final keyword means it's a constant. It can't ever change.
Right.
So I have one shot to set it, and that's it. So if I would down here say rows equal to 10, no, it would stop me. Okay. And again, this is part of the rituals of programming. We make constants in all caps. In any language, you don't have to, you make it whatever you want, but do it this way. So anybody else that sees it, they're going to know what that means. Okay.
So the purpose of doing that at the beginning is so if you get further down in your program and somehow you've messed something up and you have 5 rows and 4 columns,
yep,
it'll say, no, that's not how it was set to begin with.
And the other thing here, when I'm doing these loops here, like here,
okay,
I'm looping through the columns, I don't have to remember how many columns I have. I mean, this is pretty straightforward, but maybe it wasn't. You know, maybe you don't remember, or maybe you change that. If I change the number, if I just had a 4 here or a 5 and add a new product, I would have to go change that everywhere. But because it's right here, I know right up front. Okay. And again, the static here is because if this were, and at first I had it down here. I just had final int rows, final int column. And that was all okay, except when I tried to access it in my functions,
it wouldn't let you.
Okay. So then I moved it out, and then it's like, whoa, you're trying to access it in a static way. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. So it has to be static because it's outside of any function, but it's available to everywhere. That makes it global. So when I say final static int, that is a global available anywhere in my program, and it's a constant integer. Okay. So you can get to it anywhere.
And see, that's funny that you say that, because when I was going through, I was having a hard time remembering, like, you know, you have to stop and think about it in your mind. Which ones are the rows and which ones are the columns? What are you doing?
Yep. Yeah. The life's too short to try to remember that, you know, so make it easy on yourself.
Okay. And David, I haven't turned any of this in yet, and I'm going to have to go back and work on that one.
That's okay. I've extended the deadline till Thursday. I sent that out. So yeah, we're not doing chapter 8 this week. We're not going to mess with it. I sent a message out. Basically, the first part of chapter 8 is a useful review. It talks a little bit more about the classes. So if you want to look at that as a review for the exam, you can, but there's no new problem set this week. We're just I'm extending the deadline on this one till Thursday. I'm going to put a review video out later today. And then Wednesday at 7, we're going to have a review session that I'll also record.
Okay. As far, and I know because I watched the video, the office hours from last week, is the best way for us to review going to be going back through the programs that we've written and kind of making sure that we understand the pathways that we took to get there?
Yeah, I would do 2 things, and I'll talk about this in the video. The things I would do, I would do that. I would make sure that works, that you understand how it works, why it works. I would look at, like in the video, I'm going to make sure that you can like make up, I want to do a for loop that does that and then write it. I want to do a class that does this and then write it. Make up your own examples so you're ready to apply those skills. Programming's a toolbox that we have, right? We have for loops, we have classes, we have methods we can create, we have while loops, and if you understand all those pieces and how to use them and good examples, because it's open book, open note test, then you'll be able to pull those out. So I would look at the programs you've done and ask me any questions you have. I would look at the pieces, at the tools to make sure you understand. And then I would look around, and I'll try to find some examples. If you're having trouble making up programs, just look for other programs that you can do. Look,
Okay.
rather than reading the code, the more coding you do and the more familiarity you have with the coding, that's what you want.
Well, and I guess my question is it coding based? It's not going to be like information out of the chapters.
All coding.
That's what I'm concerned about.
All coding. All coding. It's a programming class. We're going to program.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would say
that actually makes me feel better.
If you were going to play a baseball game, you wouldn't read about swinging, right? You'd swing. You'd go swing.
Right.
When the pitcher gets ready to throw the answer this question about the theory of a curveball. No, just do it. So we're just going to do it.
Okay.
Okay. So unlike the other class, it was all theoretical. This is more practical. Your success in this class is, can you write programs? If you can, you're good.
Well, it's iffy. We'll see. I don't know. I'm still on the fence.
The jury's still out. Yeah. But so, yeah, you don't have to worry about true, false, multiple choice, essay questions. No, we're not going to do any of that.
Okay.
This is just programs.
One of the other,
and can you do them quickly enough? That's the other question.
One of the other questions I have, when you're writing programs in Java, I know that you've talked about this a couple times. Does it necessarily matter the order in which you do things? It seems like in the main, like you almost like write the skeleton of your program and then you can do the guts of it, like the functions and whatever, either above that or below that.
Yes, that is correct. That's unlike C++, and other languages. I think Python, you have to define it before you use it too.
You do.
Yeah, Java doesn't care about that. You can still do it that way. So you just don't have to mess with it. That's okay. I tend not to. I put main on top for whatever reason. But other things do matter. You have to declare a variable before you can use it.
Right.
But the method you can put before or after, and it doesn't matter at all.
Okay. Okay. And one question about the main.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what things do you put before the main? I mean, because my assumption is basically everything goes in main.
Right. Except if you're loading in, well, let's look at that. So before anything, you have your imports, right? If you're importing math or whatever, that's the first thing, okay? And then typically between the class definition and the main, there's nothing. But what you really have in here is, let's call this the global zone.
So anything that you would need throughout the program.
Yes. If you have any variables, just variables basically, any variables or arrays or whatever that you want to be able to have scope and visibility for the whole, any method, you would do that.
Okay.
But most of our programs haven't had anything in here. So everything's going to be on here.
Okay. Okay. And that's what I figured. I just wanted that clarified.
It's good to ask questions, no doubt.
Okay. I think I'm good. I really appreciate you going through that with me because I understand the arrays, but I totally didn't get like, how does the computer know what you're putting where?
Yeah, it's weird. And it is weird that it's different enough from math to be bothersome sometimes.
Yes, it is.
Understanding the math is a prerequisite for the coding, but it's not the same thing. You got to make that translation. So.
Yeah, and I understand what's going on. It's just the technicality of how do you make it happen.
Right.
And I couldn't figure out, like, once I had stuff inputted, how do you tell it essentially what cell to go into? So the way that you did it makes a whole lot more sense than the way they were doing it in there.
Yeah. Yeah, the book gets a little wordy sometimes.
Yes, it does.
Yes,
it does.
Whatever. It's the one they use in the college, so that's why I'm using it. But.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's all I need, David. I really appreciate you hanging out with me for a little while. So.
No, again, it saved me having to do a video. So I had some feedback right away, which is a good thing. So that's going to work.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Bye.